You know, I love working with you guys on What If, but there is technology we could replace you with.
Or somebody else could lose their job.
Hello, welcome to What If. I am your new host, Giada.
Technology that's finding problems before the power goes out. Three faiths bridging differences in one location. Haircuts, mentoring, and counseling in a bus. What if? Hey there, welcome to another episode of our series on innovation and creativity in Nebraska, What If? Giada is going to help us out a little bit today. A couple years ago, JoJo's Gelato and Grill was having some challenges hiring, especially when kids went back to school. So they took an innovative approach and bought a robot to help out, not to replace humans. It's the same sort of innovative thinking that led Dusty Burge to create something that may help keep your lights on. This power line has a problem. A transformer is failing, and that will cause an outage. Dusty knows. How? Mental telepathy? X-ray vision?
So you can see the secondary connection here is glowing hotter than the others. Oops, so there's an issue right there on that pole.
No superpowers needed, just a super idea. Use car-mounted technology to inspect lots of power lines quickly and find issues before they become problems. That's the simple explanation. More detail about how this works in a bit. First, let's meet the guy whose real superpower is ideas.
So originally from a small town in Benkelman, Nebraska, my very first business was actually a candy store in grade school. I had a really great business model. My mom would go to Walmart and buy candy bars, and I'd sold candy out of the bottom locker in school, even to teachers. And it was a really good model because I'd sell candy, and then when I'd take the money at the end of the day, I'd go to the arcade and spend it. And I had no cost of goods because my mom just kept buying me candy to sell, but I never had to actually buy it. I had other businesses in school. I scooped sidewalks. I started a small engine business. I'd wake up and I'd take an order from my mom and dad and cook breakfast. And I charged my parents, for breakfast. And I collected tax, but I didn't pay sales tax.
Sounds like you could possibly be audited at this point.
Yeah, I think I was underage maybe. But it was really neat that my parents supported all the crazy ideas that I had, even if it was just cooking breakfast at home. I was so young and I wanted to be in business. And so I would look at how other people were running businesses and I'm like, I want to try to do that.
After college, he worked for General Electric and launched archery, laundromat, and drone businesses, selling 2 of the 3. The stage was set for the next idea.
I really like to solve problems, and we were in a position of needing to think of a business idea that could scale. I have a big utility background, and so I went to utilities and validated, I have this idea. Does this actually solve a problem that you have? And multiple utilities said, yep, that is a legitimate problem.
What's the problem? Start with 6 million miles of power lines in the U.S., most above ground.
And the challenge with our electrical grid is it's so vast that a lot of utilities take over 10 years to do a system-wide patrol.
Look out the window as you're driving and just the visual inspection of each structure as fast as you could, but it's pretty time consuming to drive, stop and look, and then stop, drive and look.
The US actually has more power outages than any other developed country. And the challenge is due to the interval between inspections, components fail.
And bad things happen when things fail. Outages and wildfires.
In electrical applications, when components begin to break down, they generate heat, and that heat will lead that component to failing. Unfortunately, the human eye does not see temperature, So we use thermal cameras to visualize those issues. And so by putting this technology on top of a car, we can drive down the road and highlight issues that the utility doesn't know about.
So it all starts up there, right?
Yep. We have 4 thermal cameras mounted on the roof, 2 for each side of the road, and then they mounted on a pan tilt unit that allows us to reposition the camera in the event of uneven terrain or varying pole heights.
And then all the stuff you get up there comes down into here.
Yep. All the cameras feed through about a dozen wires through the rear window and then power a television display, a monitor that allows us to intermittently check and make sure the cameras are in a proper position and properly focused. By using this joystick here, we're able to independently select cameras and then move them without having to get out of the car, and we can do this in motion.
And this is like a 1970s video game, right?
Just
This
an
is like-
arcade. It's an arcade joystick with
Yeah.
a few buttons.
For demonstration purposes, Dusty set it up to show real-time results in the car. And he put up with a little silliness.
What if?
Normally, the fast-forward car gathers thousands of images in a day without stopping. Then, they're downloaded into software for evaluation.
So when you come back in, you are laying all of the thermography information you've gathered over the map that you've already created.
Correct.
And that's what we've ended up with there with all the dots and the different color dots showing the problems, right?
Correct.
Okay.
To demonstrate, we're looking at data captured in Cozad, a city Fast Forward is doing a pilot project with.
All the white dots are pole locations.
Pole locations, okay.
We're able to quantify which structures have issues, but then we're also able to quantify how bad the issue is. And so if you zoom in on the map here, there's different colored dots representing different levels of severity.
We're looking at pole 415.
Yep.
Which looks like it's right in downtown Cozad.
Yep.
Okay.
And they've since made a repair on this, but we were able to flag this. And on this image here, you can see 2 spots.
Right, yeah, and they look similar, but they really stand out.
They very stand
Yeah.
out. We do this inspection at night because it helps us find really minor issues that may get overlooked during the day. We're trying to make as little amount of work for the utility as possible to implement the repair. So they want to know what's wrong, where it's at, and how bad it is. All the other steps that we can automate, that's our goal.
So what is this going to do for you?
We was able to go out, prevent the outage, do it during working time where we could schedule the outage according to how the customer's needs were needed, so we get that repaired, all without any unexpected interruptions.
In 18 months, Fast Forward grew from idea to office dedication.
Yeah, I've never started a business that has grown this fast.
It hasn't always been easy. Getting parts and figuring out how to mount cameras to capture 5,000 pole pictures a day were challenges.
I'm Dusty.
But investor and power company interest tells Dusty he's onto something.
That is a scalable and economical way for a utility to implement system-wide, and they don't have to increase rates to their consumer because just the cost savings alone and the power outages pay for the whole project.
Is Dusty kind of a game changer in your industry?
He is.
The intent is to build the business to a point to where a national entity can acquire the company and build it even bigger. But I like to solve problems, and so I think as new technology comes out, there will be another problem to solve.
Please load your dishes.
So here's how the robot works. Staff puts an order on Giada, selects the table number. Sensors help it avoid collisions. Giada follows a program path to the table.
Please take your food.
Pretty cool. So our next story is about something you may not see anywhere else but Omaha. An ongoing experiment where 3 religions are learning from each other in one place.
This creek has seen a lot over the years. Early settlers struggling to cross it, golfers hitting balls into it. Now, an experiment happening around it. What if you had 3 religions practicing different faiths and learning about each other in one place?
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Feed my sheep
Asher b'dvarim.
as you do it to the least of these.
What is Tri-Faith in a nutshell?
The Tri-Faith Initiative is a educational nonprofit with the intention of growing a community of both meaning and belonging.
Jewish, Muslim, and Christian congregations worshiping on one campus, connected by an interfaith center providing opportunities to learn and interact.
This movement of interfaith or interreligious cooperation is a potluck. We all want to bring our own flavor. For those who are uncomfortable with our differences, we want those people to lean into our similarities. And for people who are comfortable with our similarities, we want to push ourselves to appreciate difference.
Now that's how I imagine it.
When you eat together and when you pray together, no one's at the door asking you whether you're Sunni or Shia or Muslim or Christian.
So when there aren't services, you see small, informal things.
My favorite part is the connection with people and one-on-one learning about people who believe other things.
And big events. More than 6,000 people from the three faiths and general public attended Tri-Faith events in a recent year. And there's the Tri-Faith Garden. Started in 2019, interfaith volunteers, including master gardeners, now grow more than 5,000 pounds of produce yearly. It's almost big enough to be called an urban farm.
So 100% of what you're growing gets donated to people who need it.
All volunteer, all donated.
You name it, they grow it, including potatoes, which take some work to harvest, as I discovered.
Ready to work. Okay, so I just dig around.
Right.
Did you already dig this one up for me? And this is like a prop potato?
You are...
Do I have some legitimate potato skills?
I will give you an A for potato picking.
Oh, well, just because I'm doing your work.
Well, I said you're... yeah.
They're growing more than produce here.
You know, it's led to us having deep personal relationships, learning about one another's faiths, going to activities, sharing food, and family and friendship.
We talk about ritual, somebody's ritual for getting married or for a funeral or when there's a baby. We talk about all of that. We learn about those things. And usually we start like all of these differences that we have and we circle back and we find that there are so many commonalities between the way that we've managed that culture.
The people who work in that garden have been an incredible source of role modeling of what relationships can look like.
It creates conversation. It creates our ability to talk with one another and not ignore one another. And I think that's key.
Conversation shortly after 9/11 led to all this.
What if we deepened our relationship with the Muslim community that had grown out of the 9/11 experience of our country? And what if we went to not only the Muslim community, but the Christian community and said, let's build a neighborhood. Let's do something that hasn't been done before.
Temple Israel and the American Muslim Institute had practical needs for newer, better space, but also an interest in sharing values and interfaith commitment. They built first. Christian partner Countryside wasn't looking for a costly new building.
We're not moving for the space, for the building. We are moving because of the cause, so to speak.
None of this has been without challenges. Religion and faith can be polarizing, sometimes creating conflict, especially between Israel and Palestine, Jew and Muslim. The decade-old Tri-Faith experiment was challenged more than ever in the fall of 2023.
Thank you for coming. There's tips on the back too on how to have difficult conversations. Meander around the bridge and there's a poster to sign at the end.
Thank you. And we've been just in a world of pain. And for us to come together, to walk the walk, to stand and bridge difference, especially in knowing that there are things we don't agree on right now. And it's really a beautiful model for the world.
Back to the creek. It's seen folks overcoming challenges for a long time. The golf course that was here, a reaction to anti-Semitism, built in the 1920s when Jews weren't allowed to join other country clubs, so they created their own. The name given to it by a 19th century settler, Hell's Creek. You know, it was named this way because of a settler who just hated getting across it, but figured out a way.
Right. You know, I guess that also reminds me that this work that we're doing here to celebrate difference, to bring people who are different together and honor that, each person in their uniqueness. Sometimes that work is hell, right?
We can enjoy other faiths. We can live side by side. We can live in peace, harmony. We can be friends despite different religions. I think this is really putting a wrench into the narrative that religion is a negative thing, that it has to be violent, abusive, intolerant, and so on.
We don't try and force our beliefs on the other. We don't try and change our relationships to be one big community. We specifically have separate buildings. But what it means is that we have the opportunity to share about our faith and our religion and our traditions and values, and to bring other people in and to go into other spaces and learn about them.
So this whole thing, is it working?
It's an experiment in progress. Can we do more? Can we be better? Can we try new things? You bet. Have we? Yes. Is everything working according to that plan? Yeah, I think so.
I mean, there was no blueprint for this, right?
There still isn't. We are building this ship while we're flying it. I think when we look back 20 years from now, we are going to look at our foresight in appreciating our different cultures as something that saved our society. It's hard. People disagree. People get uncomfortable. And yet it's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
It's all true at the same time.
Assalamu alaikum.
Shalom.
Amen.
Religious innovation is nothing new in Nebraska, like the unusual tiny church that folks in tiny Keystone built a century ago. A Catholic and a Protestant walk into a church. Not the start of a joke, the start of a story about a unique place where both could have gone to services a century ago. A tiny building in a tiny village.
It's touted as the only one in the world.
Most people are amazed at what's actually here, that it's here, and how special it is. So we think it's a real treasure.
It's just really a special place.
Here's how it works. There's a Catholic altar on one end, Protestant altar on the other. In between, rows of pews on hinges that flip whatever direction is needed. Same with kneelers pulled out from either direction. Barbara, the Catholic, and Kathy, the Protestant, are two of the less than 100 folks who live in Keystone. They keep the little church and its history from fading away.
Dedication was Reverend Dean George Beecher of Omaha.
Keystone was founded in 1906 with a hotel, some businesses, but no church.
The idea was brought by a group of teenage girls who were called the King's Daughters, and they were under the direction of Mrs. Georgia Paxton. Mr. Paxton, her husband, Bill Jr., they had a ranch just northeast of town here.
So the girls decided we needed a church. And they went about having sales, bazaars.
And the idea for two-way pews? Likely something the well-traveled Mrs. Paxton saw in big city cable cars, which had seats that flipped because the cars couldn't turn around. The little church opened in 1908. The unique concept occasionally got attention in other parts of the country. One article called it eminently sensible, neighborly, and effective. Catholics and Presbyterians alternated Sunday worship here at first. Presbyterians left and a Lutheran congregation moved in. Then Catholics left and it was a Lutheran church until the last regular service in 1949.
I think it speaks well to the pioneer spirit. We figure out what we need and we figure out a way to do it, and we usually get along while we're doing it. And I think it's a simple solution to so many issues today, if we could just all do this.
Check out a longer version of our story about the little church on our website. There you can also learn about all the original music featured in our stories, including some created by a guy who's featured in our last story. It's about an unusual approach to youth mentoring that includes this.
Are you gonna start lifting weights too?
Yeah, I have a bench in my basement, man.
Yeah, because you definitely need to get a little stronger, man. Yeah.
Now, your left side, I'll give it to you. You're strong on your left side, but your right side is kind of weak, man.
Conversations cover a lot of ground when KB has Lawrence in the chair.
I read a book recently that I wanted to tell you about, which is pretty cool.
You watch the news a lot?
I mean, they say that the 300 hurdles is one of the most difficult races in high school, you know?
Sweets are my weakness.
I can tell.
KB and Lawrence met in this barber shop. Instant friends? Yeah.
Always just loud and obnoxious, and I just absolutely did not like him at all.
And I knew I liked this guy. I was like, man, and I thought he could take it. I thought his skin was alligator skin. So I'm like, I know you could take this,
They bonded over music, DJing, and emceeing weddings. They started brainstorming about helping kids. Started a nonprofit called Visionary Youth. Then, the barber and the counselor had an idea.
Your life started, had a whole lot of problems. You were searching for an answer, a solution just to solve them. You could never get a break, but the world was still revolving. You were making big mistakes.
He's like, well, what about bringing the mentoring and barbering and also counseling into this mobile component and taking that around and being able to serve people where they are? And I was like, now that's a really, really cool idea because there are no mobile counseling spots.
So, yeah, a barbershop in a bus. Here's how it works.
Kadarius, how you doing?
9 to 13-year-old boys who, for different reasons, need a little extra help or support in their lives. They come from the Malone Community Center, a program partner, to the bus for 90 minutes once a week for 10 weeks. The barbers come from Oasis Barbershops, owned by KB, but volunteer for this program, paired with the same kid each week.
Ask them about what they would like to accomplish in the next session.
We prep our barbers before they go in to work with the young people and they know what subject they'll be talking about that day. And then they're using the curriculum that we created to ask questions and guide them along this journey of development as they go through the 10-week process.
Asking them just normal questions that you would ask in a barbershop, but in a formal type of way, so.
Are you better playing on a team or by yourself? Or does it depend on something?
So what is one of those things in school that you had to be confident about?
Like reading in front of the class?
Reading in front of the class? How'd it make you feel? It make you feel weird?
Like anxious?
Anxious?
Yeah.
Like to be on defense or offense? You don't know? You just like to kick the ball, huh?
Getting the grades looking good too. That's good, that's good. We gotta keep them up.
I know.
When you guys are in the bus, what are you talking to the kids about?
Just about life and how they doing in school and how could we help them on a better day to make them happier.
Hobbies, activities, things they like to do.
Also about any goals that they have, helping them open their mind to see different perspectives and to take on new challenges for themselves.
I'm gonna have y'all go talk to Lawrence.
Barbers leave, the counselor steps in.
Like, what do you do with that feeling? Because it's so easy for us to talk about sad feelings or depressing feelings. We don't talk about exciting feelings a lot.
Tell me about your role in this thing.
I provide the mental health element to the mentorship, where I just provide the psychoeducation and make sure it goes in a direction where kids are developing different social skills, coping skills, communication skills. So I get to see if memory issues, recall issues. It helps me identify some things that the kids might need to work on just by watching their relationships with the barber.
A lot happening in a short period of time in a small space. And turning an old party bus into a barber shop with a bathroom, lights, towel warmer, the barber pole, nice touch. All in compliance with state regulations for barbershops? Not easy.
But how creative did you have to get to figure out a way to put 4 barber chairs and everything else in this bus, which is decent size, but it's not huge.
Now, just a 36 foot, we have to get real creative on trying to get the nooks and the crannies right, and just the measurements from barber chair to the stations and how many barbers we can get in here. So everything that a barbershop would normally have, we got in here. And then we got great barbers and great conversations, so.
Have we ever tried to give a haircut while the bus is in motion?
No, that's a lot. That's real dangerous right there.
Youth mentoring programs aren't unusual. Same with mobile barbershops. But this?
I have not seen mobile barbershops where mentoring is also provided and counseling in the same space. That's the uniqueness, I think, of this project. So what really makes this stand out is that, the space where it happens is a very therapeutic, intentional intervention space.
When I can get them to look good and just open up on how they want their haircut, then that just opens up everything else.
Especially when you come in looking rough or feeling rough, and that person can actually utilize their hands and mold you like clay, so to speak, and make you feel better and look better.
We're natural therapists. Sometimes we're their first contact after school, after work, after a tough time, and they just need somebody to talk to them.
Counseling in a space that doesn't look like it's counseling.
That's the key.
Shout out to my hustlers out there, making those moves when the rest are unaware. You deserve a standing ovation with the way you innovate and make it work, pulling money out the air. I feel you in my
It's kind of an experiment. MindMobile launched just a couple months before we shot this story. They're collecting before and after info to evaluate. For now, success is based on assumptions. That it's a good 90 minutes a week most young people never get, especially often underserved young males of color. Support, mentorship, positive relationships, counseling, all with other youth in the same place at the same time.
There's so many challenges that these young people face that we don't know anything about. And what we wanted to do is just create a space for them to feel better. And when we see those kids come out of the Malone Center and run to the bus, that's enough for me. The big picture is that we could create a curriculum, we create a project that can be duplicated across the United States.
Big ideas born from two friends talking trash in a barber chair.
Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get you.
What kind of spray is that? It smells like mosquito spray. You trying to put mosquito spray on me or something? Man, that's a distinguished mustache. That looks good.
That's it for this episode of What If? Giada, really happy that you could be a little part of our show, but you know what? You can't have my job.
Excuse me.
But thank you to JoJo's for helping us out with all of this. You can watch all of our segments, our episodes, and our Innovator Insights educational segments online. Plus, follow us on social media, #WhatIfNebraska. Thanks for watching.
Look at that.
Look at the camera and just say "what if" really loud, and then do this.
Big hand gesture.
Do
You seriously want us to all three do that?
What? It's.
Do you have a gesture choice? All right, do a gesture of choice.
Macarena.
1, 2, 3. What if? Sorry.